Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's Chasing Psychological Safety video with Dwayna and I. This week, we are going to be talking about organization and culture. Two of the most used words that we hear when in all of the articles and content and videos and everything that's online about leadership and behaviors and how to really drive your organization forward and how to create healthy team cultures. We hear these two words, organization and culture, all the time. People are looking for their organizational culture to be defined, for their organization to drive the culture. There are all sorts of ways in which the two words are connected, and there is an idea that there is a to-do around organizational culture, that somehow it needs to be created. It needs to be created by the executive. It needs to be created by having a PowerPoint that we distribute across the organization. And you're not going to be surprised to find that we disagree. So organization and culture to us, and I'm going to be a bit topical, why not? It's December, are about as real as Santa. So to think about it from the organization inwards is almost a myth, an uncontrollable myth, not something that you can get your hands around or that is tangible in any way. If you want a culture for your company, your business, your organization, your collection of teams, it starts from the teams outwards. Each and every team builds its own culture. Each and every team creates a positive, healthy environment that suits that team to work in. They establish their group behavioral norms, and then that collectively creates a culture that could be seen as organization-wide. But if you want to really influence your organization and the behaviors that you see within that company and within the people that produce the work for you, start at the team base. That's where you're going to build culture. That's where you're going to get an idea of how teams want and need to be in order to be productive for you. So we really would prefer if people parked the idea of organization and really parked the idea of it being culture being connected to organization and flipped it completely on its head and start thinking about it from the teams outwards.
Exactly. And the reason why that will work for all of us is because once you shift that focus, you can start doing things about it. And anyone who's heard from us before or read from us before knows we have an obsession with the doing and the action, and the making sure that the needle is moved and there's some type of change and transformation. In particular, when it comes to the period we're traversing, and we've said this over and over again, we now have a golden opportunity where there's enough momentum around the idea of the importance of people at work that we should make something out of it. And if the conversation on culture and organization is heavier these days, is a symptom of the fact or a result of the fact that we now have more focus on people, that's great. But that's just simply not good enough. And once this momentum dissipates, we will probably not be left with a lot unless we have translated this preoccupation into exact to-dos. And as ever, the number one thing we need to be doing is refocus around the people work, the human work, the things that will make changes that are tangible, they are measurable, they are day-to-day livable by all of us in teams. And those changes have to be in the behavior of the group that is the team. So if you want to think of the organization, the team, and the individual as three different entities, and they are three different things to think of, then again, as Fionn says, we would rather we parked the organization bit, we focused on the team bit, because while there's a lot of work to be done on the individual and the personal employee bit, that isn't something we necessarily think that the organization should be mandating, but where they can and should be adding value is where they support the human work and the people work at the team level. And in terms of the support and of the work in itself, we have written about this before, and we'll spend some of next year bringing some more meat to this idea. But we were surprised when we created our dashboard to see that not a lot has been said, done, or researched around the idea of having an equivalent of CBT for teams. To scroll back a little bit, or to take a breath and get the definitions in place, CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's one type of psychotherapy, and it typically involves changing the behaviors of individuals or couples, let's say. Very rarely does it apply to a group environment, and even more rarely, or almost never from our calculations, is it really discussed at a team level, at a group that is also a work group or a team. And so we would like to change that, chiefly because the principle is absolutely the same, which is as soon as you start understanding why something makes you feel a certain way and behave a certain way, react a certain way to it, as soon as you start breaking down the triggers that cause a certain behavior, as soon as you understand not only what causes it, but how you react to it and how that affects your wellness and your ability to be healthy and mentally healthy and emotionally healthy and productive and performant. As soon as you understand these things, you can then start working on them. That is the basis of our thesis on what we've built in our dashboard, but it's also obviously the basis of any kind of change in behavior at the group and at the team level. So if we want to affect culture, we have to affect the behaviors of teams. Those teams have to become open, they have to become empathic, respectful, kind. They have to do all the good things that will enable them to be highly performant, innovative, and productive. And so to do those behaviors, they have to take a very clear and measured look at what are the triggers for the bad behaviors, what are causing the good behaviors, and that can be done in a very analytical and data-driven fashion, which is why we have built our dashboard. So there is such a thing as CBT for teams, the same way that we can teach individuals to stop smoking or to get over trauma, the same way that we can change harmful behaviors at an individual or couple level, we can do that at a team level in the workplace by simply understanding what we're trying to encourage. In a sense, this is essentially building culture at the team level and affecting those behaviors.
Absolutely. And if you are keen to make that change for your teams, to see that behavioral change, to get that understanding of the triggers, to start moving past what's causing blockers in your productivity and your team health and the joy of the people in the teams that work for you, come and see us. We've got all the to-dos ready for you. We've got all the actions ready for you in our software. If you can't do that, if you're not quite ready to do that, watch every video we've ever made, watch all the articles we've written. All the tools are laid out, at least at a starter level, for you in those in that content. But we'd love to talk to you, and thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.